Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the center of the vast chamber, her black uniform a stark contrast against the gleaming white walls of Concordia Prime. The massive space station served as the heart of the Galactic Council, home to delegates from over 300 species across the galaxy. Today, those same delegates sat in judgment of humanity. The chamber buzzed with alien voices speaking in dozens of languages. Translators worked overtime to convert the cacophony into something resembling order. Sarah kept her face calm, but inside her heart raced. She had been Earth's representative to the Council for 7 years. She knew these beings. She understood their fears. Chancellor Vexai of the Zephyrian Republic called for silence. His blue skin seemed to shimmer under the chamber's lights as he rose from his seat. The Zephyrians had been among humanity's strongest allies when Earth first joined the Council 23 years ago. That alliance now lay in ruins. The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding the human question, Vexai announced. His voice carried the weight of centuries. The Zephyrians lived for over 400 years, and Vexai had seen the rise and fall of many species. After extensive deliberation, we find that humanity has violated the core principles of peaceful coexistence that bind our alliance together. Sarah's jaw tightened. She had expected this, but hearing the words still stung. Around the chamber, delegates from hundreds of worlds watched her with a mixture of fear and disgust. Some species had never trusted humans from the beginning. Others had been humanity's friends until recent events changed their minds. The evidence is clear, continued Ambassador Thys of the Hegemony Coalition. Her serpentine form coiled around her speaking platform as she addressed the assembly. In the past 5 years, humanity has expanded their fleet by 300%. They have established military bases in 47 systems. Their ships carry weapons that violate 17 different peace treaties. Sarah wanted to speak, to defend her species, but the rules of Council judgment forbade interruption. She could only listen as they listed humanity's crimes against galactic peace. The humans claim these measures are for defense, spoke General Korth of the Mandalorian. Clans. His massive form dominated his section of the chamber. But defense against what? We have maintained peace for over 2 centuries. The only threat to that peace comes from humanity itself. The accusations continued for over an hour. Humanity was too aggressive, too militaristic, too quick to solve problems with violence instead of diplomacy. Sarah had heard these complaints before, but never with such unified condemnation. The breaking point had come 6 months ago during the Kepler crisis. Pirates had attacked a joint human-alien research station. While the Council debated proper response protocols, human ships had already tracked down the pirates and destroyed their entire fleet. No survivors. No prisoners. No mercy. The research station was saved, Sarah had argued at the time. The pirates will never threaten innocent people again. But at what cost? Ambassador Thys had replied. Violence breeds violence. The pirates had families, children. You have created new enemies with your brutality. Sarah still believed they had done the right thing. Pirates who attacked civilians deserved no mercy. But the Council saw things differently. They valued process over results. They preferred months of negotiation to minutes of decisive action. The final incident that brought us to this point, Chancellor Vexai continued, occurred just 3 weeks ago in the Tau Ceti system. A human fleet engaged and destroyed Ravager ships that were conducting lawful salvage operations. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Lawful salvage operations. The Ravagers had been stripping abandoned colonies for scrap metal, but those colonies still had survivors hiding in underground shelters. The human fleet had saved over 10,000 lives, but the Ravagers had possessed proper salvage, permits from the Council bureaucracy. The humans acted without Council authorization. Added Minister Qualls of the administrative body. They showed complete disregard for proper legal procedures. Worse, they refused to apologize or pay compensation to the Ravager Corporation. The debate that followed revealed the true depth of anti-human feeling in the Council. Speaker after speaker rose to condemn humanity's actions. They spoke of human arrogance, human violence, human disrespect for civilized behavior. A few voices tried to defend Earth. Ambassador Neltar of the Free Colonies reminded the Assembly of humanity's contributions to galactic medicine and technology. Commander Jezra of the Outer Rim Territories spoke of human bravery in fighting off border raiders. But these voices were drowned out by the majority. Humanity has shown they cannot be trusted with the responsibilities of council membership, declared Justice Morden of the tribunal courts. They are a young species. Perhaps in another century or two, they will learn to value peace over conquest. The final vote was not even close. 297 species voted to expel humanity from the Galactic Council. Only 6 voted against the motion. Even some of humanity's oldest allies abstained rather than defend them. Chancellor Vexhai stood once more. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby expelled from our alliance. All human ships must withdraw from Council space within 72 standard hours. All diplomatic relations are suspended indefinitely. All trade agreements are void. Sarah finally found her voice. Chancellor, I request permission to speak. Granted. Though the decision is final. Sarah looked around the chamber at faces that had once welcomed her as a friend and ally. Now they watched her with cold satisfaction. They had solved their human problem by simply making it go away. For 23 years, humanity has been a loyal member of this council, she began. We have contributed our technology, our resources, and our lives to the common good. We have fought alongside you against pirates and raiders. We have shared our discoveries freely with all species. And yet you have repeatedly violated, Minister Qualls began. I am not finished. Sarah cut him off. The chamber fell silent. Even condemned prisoners had the right to final words. You say we are too violent, too aggressive, too quick to act. Perhaps you are right. But ask yourselves this question. When pirates attacked the research station, where were your fleets? When raiders threatened the border colonies, who answered their calls for help? When the Ravagers were looting dead worlds, who bothered to check if anyone was still alive? Sarah's voice grew stronger with each word. You have expelled us for being willing to fight. For refusing to let bureaucracy slow us down when lives were at stake. For choosing action over endless debate. If that makes us unfit for your council, then perhaps we are better off without you. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates demanded that Sarah be removed immediately, but Chancellor Vexhai held up a hand for silence. Your words are noted, Admiral Chen. You have 1 hour to gather your belongings before departure. Sarah nodded and turned to leave. As she walked toward the exit, she heard Ambassador Thys whisper to her neighbor. Good riddance. Now perhaps we can have some peace. Sarah smiled grimly. They wanted peace. They were about to get more than they bargained for. Her shuttle waited in the docking bay, engines already warming up for departure. As Sarah settled into her seat, she opened a secure communication channel to Earth. The message she sent was brief, but would change the course of galactic history. Council has voted. We are expelled. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol 7. They wanted us gone. Let's give them what they asked for. The shuttle launched from Concordia Prime and set course for Earth. Behind them, the Galactic Council celebrated their victory over human aggression. They had no idea what they had just unleashed upon the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council had cast humanity out of civilized space. The massive evacuation was finally complete. From the Outer Rim territories to the core worlds, every human colony, research station and trading post in Council space had been abandoned. Ships loaded with people and equipment streamed toward Earth in an endless convoy of exile. President Elena Martinez stood before the assembled delegates of the United Earth Assembly. The chamber buzzed with tension and anger. Representatives from every human world had gathered to decide their species' future. Some called for revenge against the Council. Others wanted to retreat into isolation. A few even suggested surrendering and begging for readmission. Martinez raised her hand for silence. At 62, she had served as Earth's president for 8 years. She had guided humanity through the crisis with the Council, and now she would lead them into whatever came next. My fellow humans, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council declared us unfit for civilized society. They said we were too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous to exist alongside peaceful species. Angry murmurs rose from the assembly. Martinez let them voice their frustration for a moment before continuing. They were afraid of us, afraid of what we might become, afraid of our ships, our weapons, our willingness to fight for what we believe in. They wanted us to be quiet and submissive, to follow their rules without question, to let their bureaucrats decide when action was necessary. The president's voice grew stronger. But we are not a species that accepts defeat quietly. We are not a people who bow down to those who would chain us. We are humans. And today we reject their judgment and forge our own path among the stars. The chamber erupted in cheers. Delegates leaped to their feet shouting approval. But Martinez was not finished. I hereby announce the formation of the Terran Imperium, a new alliance built on human values. Strength through unity. Unity through strength. We will no longer beg for acceptance from species who see us as inferior. We will take our place as the rightful guardians of this galaxy. Admiral Sarah Chen stepped forward from the military section. She had been busy since returning from Concordia Prime, coordinating the massive evacuation and preparing for what came next. Now she would reveal the true scope of humanity's preparations. The Council thought they knew our strength, Chen announced. They counted our ships and measured our fleets. They believed they understood our capabilities. They were wrong. A massive holographic display activated above the assembly floor. It showed star charts extending far beyond the galactic rim into regions no Council ship had ever explored. Hundreds of red dots marked human installations in deep space. For the past 15 years, we have been preparing for this day, Chen continued. While the Council watched our public fleets, we built secret shipyards in the void between galaxies. While they monitored our official colonies, we established hidden bases beyond their sensors. The display zoomed in on one of the red dots. It showed a massive shipyard complex larger than anything in Council space. Hundreds of ships floated in construction bays, their sleek hulls gleaming under artificial lights. Project Exodus began shortly after we joined the Council, Chen explained. We knew their peace would not last forever. We knew that eventually we would need to stand alone, so we prepared. More images flashed across the display. Factory worlds stripping asteroids for raw materials. Research stations developing new weapons and technologies. Training facilities where human soldiers learned to fight in environments that would kill most aliens. The Council believed we had 300 ships, Chen said with satisfaction. They were counting only our exploration and patrol vessels. Our true fleet numbers over 900 ships of the line. Battleships, cruisers, and carriers designed for one purpose, conquest. The assembly sat in stunned silence. Even the civilian leaders had not known the full extent of military preparations. But Chen was not finished revealing humanity's secrets. More importantly, we have not been idle during our years in the Council. Every alien technology we encountered was studied, analyzed, and improved upon. Their shields are stronger than ours, but we learned to build weapons that ignore shields entirely. Their engines are faster, but we developed tactics that make speed irrelevant. The display showed technical schematics of human ships. Their designs were unlike anything in Council space. Where alien ships were smooth and elegant, human vessels were angular and aggressive. They bristled with weapons and armor, built for war rather than exploration. The Zephyrians taught us about energy projection. We turned their research into plasma cannons that can melt through any known armor. The Mandalorian clans showed us their engineering techniques. We used them to build ships twice as durable as theirs. Every species in the Council contributed to our education, though they never meant to. Chen's smile was cold and predatory. They called us students. They treated us like children learning at their feet. But we were never students. We were researchers gathering intelligence on potential enemies. The final image on the display showed the current positions of human fleets. They were spread throughout unexplored space, establishing footholds on worlds the Council had never discovered. Each fleet was accompanied by colony ships and construction vessels. Humanity was not just building an army, they were building an empire. The Terran Imperium is not just a military alliance, President Martinez announced. We will offer citizenship to any species willing to join us as equals. Not as junior partners or protected clients, but as full members of our growing empire. She gestured to a section of the chamber where several alien delegates sat. They were representatives of species the Council had ignored or rejected. Races considered too primitive or too aggressive for membership in the Galactic Alliance. The Kresh Confederacy has already pledged their support, Martinez continued, as have the Free Traders Coalition and the independent mining guilds. They have seen how the Council treats those it considers inferior. They want no part of that system. Admiral Chen stepped forward again. Our scouts have identified 17 species in unexplored space who could benefit from human protection. We will not conquer them. We will liberate them from isolation and offer them the chance to join something greater. The President raised her fist in the air. The Galactic Council wanted us gone because they feared our strength. They were right to fear us. But they made one critical mistake. They assumed that casting us out would make us weaker. The entire assembly rose to their feet, shouting approval. The chant began in the military section and spread throughout the chamber. Terran Imperium. Terran Imperium. Martinez let the celebration continue for several minutes before calling for order. The evacuation is complete. Our people are safe. Our fleets are ready. Tomorrow we begin the next phase of human expansion. The Council thinks they have seen the last of us. They are about to learn how wrong they are. Admiral Chen activated her communicator. Across human space, fleet commanders received their orders simultaneously. Operation New Dawn was beginning. Humanity would no longer hide in the shadows or beg for acceptance. They would forge their own destiny among the stars. The Galactic Council had created an enemy more dangerous than they could imagine. By casting humanity out, they had freed them from all restraint. The Terran Imperium was about to be born, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the void between stars, massive human fleets began to move toward unexplored regions. They carried with them the hopes and dreams of an entire species, but more importantly, they carried the weapons and determination to make those dreams reality. The age of human submission was over. The era of the Terran Imperium had begun. The Keth Collective had ruled their corner of space for over 3 centuries. Their hive-mind consciousness controlled 17 species across 42 star systems. They were efficient, ruthless, and utterly without mercy for those they considered inferior. The Galactic Council had tried to negotiate with them for decades, achieving nothing but empty promises and broken treaties. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the T's Defiance, flagship of the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. Through the viewport, he could see the Keth homeworld of Prime, hanging like a diseased jewel against the stars. The planet's surface was covered in vast industrial complexes that processed raw materials shipped from enslaved worlds. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the planet," reported Lieutenant Williams from the communications station. "The Keth are demanding we identify ourselves and state our business." Morrison smiled grimly. The Keth had no idea what they were facing. Human intelligence had studied the collective for months, learning their weaknesses and preparing for this moment. "Open a channel," Morrison ordered. "This is Commander Morrison of the Terran Imperium Navy. We are here to discuss the liberation of your slave species." The response came quickly, transmitted directly into the minds of every human on the bridge. The Keth communicated through telepathic pulses that felt like ice water being poured into the brain. "We do not recognize your authority. Withdraw or be destroyed." Morrison felt the mental pressure of the Keth's communication but showed no sign of discomfort. Human minds had proven surprisingly resistant to telepathic intrusion, another advantage the aliens had not expected. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Morrison replied calmly. "We're not asking for permission. We're informing you of what's about to happen." The Keth response was immediate and violent. Weapons platforms throughout the system opened fire on the human fleet. Energy beams and missile swarms filled space with deadly light. It was an impressive display of firepower that would have terrified most species. The human ships barely noticed. "All ships, implement Protocol Alpha," Morrison commanded. "Target priority is military installations first, then industrial complexes. Avoid civilian areas where possible." The battle for Keth Prime was over before it truly began. Human ships moved through the defensive fire like sharks through minnows. Their shields absorbed energy blasts that should have vaporized them. Their armor shrugged off missiles that could crack asteroids, but it was the human weapons that truly shocked the Keth. Plasma cannons fired coherent beams of superheated matter that cut through Keth ships like paper. Kinetic bombardment systems launched projectiles at relativistic speeds, turning enemy vessels into expanding clouds of debris. The Keth had never faced an enemy that fought with such precision and overwhelming force. Their hive mind gave them perfect coordination, but it also made them predictable. Human tactical computers had analyzed every pattern in their combat doctrine and developed counters for each one. "Sir, Keth fleet is in full retreat," reported the tactical officer. "They're abandoning their orbital platforms and fleeing to the outer system." Morrison nodded. "Let them go. Our target is the planet." The assault on Keth Prime itself took less than 6 hours. Human Marines stormed the control centers while orbital bombardment destroyed key installations. The Keth had never faced ground combat against humans before. They discovered too late that human soldiers were faster, stronger, and far more creative than their enslaved troops. But the real shock came when the humans reached the slave pens. Deep beneath Keth Prime's surface, millions of beings from 17 different species lived in horrific conditions. They had been bred and conditioned for generations to serve the collective without question. Most had never seen sunlight or breathed clean air. Captain Maria Santos led the rescue teams into the deepest levels of the facility. What she found there would haunt her dreams for years to come. Beings who had been surgically modified to perform specific functions. Children raised in isolation to break their will. Entire species on the verge of extinction from overwork and malnutrition. "Jesus Christ," whispered Sergeant Chen as they entered a chamber filled with Villani workers. The cat-like aliens had been fitted with neural implants that forced them to obey Keth commands. Many had gone insane from the constant mental intrusion. "Sir, we've got incoming Keth forces," reported Corporal Davis from the entrance. "Looks like they're trying to retake the facility." Santos activated her communicator. "Negative on the retreat order. We're not leaving these people behind." She turned to her squad. "Establish a perimeter. Nobody gets past us." The battle in the tunnels was brutal in close quarters. Keth warriors were larger and stronger than humans, but they fought with the mechanical precision of drones. Human soldiers fought with fury and desperation, knowing that failure meant condemning millions to continued slavery. The tide turned when Captain Santos made contact with a group of Villani rebels. They had been planning a breakout for months but lacked the weapons to succeed. With human support, they turned the Keth's own tunnels against them. "We know every passage," explained clan leader Veltar through a translator. "We can guide your people to the central control nodes." Working together, humans and Villani destroyed the neural control systems that kept the slaves docile. Across the facility, beings who had been mindless drones for decades suddenly remembered who they were. The revolution spread like wildfire. Within hours, Keth Prime was in complete chaos. Freed slaves attacked their former masters with improvised weapons. Human forces provided support and coordination, but the real fighting was done by those who had suffered under Keth rule. Commander Morrison watched the liberation from orbit with satisfaction. "Signal all ships. Begin evacuation procedures. Any being who wants to leave this system is welcome aboard our vessels." The response overwhelmed human transport capacity. Millions of beings wanted to escape the Keth collective, but the human fleet could only carry a fraction of them. The solution came from an unexpected source. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Arcturus Merchant Guild," reported Lieutenant Williams. "They're offering transport ships to assist with the evacuation." Morrison frowned. "The Guild? They're not part of our alliance." "According to their message, they want to be," Williams replied. "They've been watching our operation and are impressed with our methods." The merchant ships that arrived were massive cargo haulers, capable of carrying hundreds of thousands of passengers. Their crews were a mix of species that had been excluded from the Galactic Council for various reasons. Pirates, traders, and outcasts who had found profit in the spaces between civilizations. Captain Joxar of the guild ship Wanderer was typical of his kind. The reptilian trader had been dealing with the Keth for years, always careful to stay on their good side. But what he had witnessed changed his perspective entirely. "Your people fight differently than the Council species," Joxar explained to Commander Morrison during their first meeting. "You actually win your battles. The Council would have spent decades negotiating while these slaves died in their pens." Morrison nodded. "We believe in decisive action. The strong protect the weak. It's a simple philosophy." "Simple but effective," Joxar agreed. "The Guild has dealt with the Keth for years. We knew about the slaves, but were too weak to do anything about it. You freed them in a single day. The evacuation took 3 weeks to complete. Human ships worked alongside Guild vessels to transport freed slaves to safe systems. Many chose to settle on worlds controlled by the Terran Imperium. Others requested passage to neutral space where they could rebuild their civilizations. But the most significant development came when representatives from 7 of the freed species formally requested membership in the Terran Imperium. They had seen human strength and human mercy. They wanted to be part of something that could protect them from future oppression. The ceremony took place aboard the TIS Defiance, in orbit of Keth Prime. Commander Morrison stood before delegates from the Villani clans, the Thorian Republic, the Free Miners Consortium, and 4 other groups. "The Terran Imperium accepts your request for membership," Morrison announced. "But understand what this means. We are not conquerors seeking tribute. We are protectors seeking allies. You will maintain your own governments and your own cultures. In return, you will have the protection of human fleets and the benefits of our technology. The response was immediate and overwhelming. News of the liberation spread throughout unexplored space faster than human ships could travel. Species that had hidden from the Keth collective for generations emerged from their hiding places. Others who had been oppressed by different enemies looked to humanity for salvation. Within 6 months of the Battle of Keth Prime, 43 species had requested to join the Terran Imperium. Human fleets found themselves welcomed as liberators rather than conquerors. The contrast with the Galactic Council's approach could not have been starker. Admiral Chen received regular reports of the expansion from her headquarters on New Terra. Each new member species brought unique technologies and capabilities to the Alliance. The Imperium was growing stronger with every passing day. But perhaps most importantly, they were proving a point that the Galactic Council had refused to acknowledge. Sometimes the galaxy needed someone willing to fight for what was right. Sometimes peace could only. Chancellor Vexhai stared at the tactical display with growing horror. The Void Reapers had emerged from the galactic core 18 months ago, ancient machines awakening after millions of years of slumber. Now they consumed entire star systems with terrifying efficiency, turning planets into raw materials for their endless expansion. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in progress for 16 hours. Representatives from 300 species argued, debated, and accomplished nothing while the Reapers advanced deeper into civilized space. The latest reports showed the loss of the Altarian system, home to over 12 billion souls. Our combined fleets cannot stand against them, admitted Admiral Thaisara of the Hegemony Navy. Her serpentine form coiled nervously around her speaking platform. They destroyed the 7th Battle Group in minutes. Our weapons barely scratched their hulls. General Korth slammed his massive fist on his console. The Mandalorian clans have lost 4 colonies to these machines. Our warriors are brave, but bravery means nothing against enemies that feel no fear and show no mercy. The reports coming in painted a picture of absolute devastation. The Reapers were not conquerors in any traditional sense. They did not seek territory or resources in ways other species could understand. They simply consumed everything in their path, breaking down matter at the molecular level to fuel their expansion. Their technology is beyond our understanding, reported Chief Scientist Morden of the Research Collective. They manipulate gravity itself as a weapon. Their ships phase in and out of normal space at will. Our sensors cannot track them, our weapons cannot hit them, and our shields cannot stop them. Chancellor Vexhai felt the weight of his 4 centuries pressing down on him. He had guided the Zephyrian Republic through wars, plagues, and natural disasters, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this threat. What of our allies beyond Council space? Asked Ambassador Neltar of the Free Colonies. Surely some species possess weapons that could be effective. We have contacted every known civilization, replied Foreign Minister Qualls. The Regelian Empire has gone dark. The Centauri Federation evacuated their core worlds last week. Even the criminal syndicates are fleeing toward the Galactic Rim. The mention of the Galactic Rim brought uncomfortable silence to the chamber. Everyone knew what lay beyond the rim now. The Terran Imperium had been expanding rapidly since their exile, gathering allies and building fleets in regions no council ship had ever explored. Sir, interrupted Communications Officer Dalesh, we're receiving a priority transmission from the outer territories. The Reapers have entered the Beta Quadrant. They're heading directly for the trade hub at Zarian Station. Zarian Station housed over 50 million beings from dozens of species. It was also heavily defended by the largest council fleet in that sector. If the Reapers could destroy it easily, nowhere in council space would be safe. Dispatch the 5th and 7th fleets immediately, ordered Admiral Thaisara. We must buy time for evacuation. But even as she gave the order, everyone in the chamber knew it was futile. The 5th and 7th fleets represented over 400 ships, the pride of Council naval power. Against the Reapers, they would last perhaps an hour longer than previous forces. Minister Qualls leaned toward Chancellor Vexhai and whispered urgently, Sir, we must consider all options, even the unthinkable ones. Vexhai knew what his minister meant. For months, a small faction within the council had been suggesting the impossible, asking humanity for help. The idea had been rejected repeatedly as both politically impossible and strategically pointless. What could exiled humans do that the combined might of the council could not? The answer came 6 hours later. "Sir, we've lost contact with Zarian Station," reported Dalesh in a shaken voice. The 5th and 7th Fleets engaged the Reapers at 800 Standard Time. They lasted 37 minutes. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Over 400 ships destroyed in barely half an hour. The Reapers were not just powerful, they were impossibly advanced. Facing them with conventional weapons was like attacking a star with a slingshot. But then came unexpected news that changed everything. "Sir, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the DMZ near Terran space," Dalesh announced. "It's from Captain Veltar of the Independent Survey Corps." The transmission crackled with static, but the voice came through clearly. "This is Captain Veltar aboard the exploration vessel Dawn's Edge. We encountered Reaper forces in the Gamma sector 3 days ago. Request immediate assistance from any available ships." General Korth growled in frustration. "Another ship requesting help we cannot provide. We should warn them to flee while they still can." But Dalesh held up a hand. "Sir, there's more to the transmission." Veltar's voice continued. "I am pleased to report that human forces responded to our distress call. The Terran Imperium 3rd Fleet engaged and destroyed 12 Reaper vessels with minimal losses. Repeat, the humans have found a way to fight these machines effectively." The chamber fell silent. For a moment no one spoke or moved. Then everyone began talking at once. "Impossible," breathed Admiral Thisara. "No one can fight the Reapers successfully." "The transmission must be damaged," insisted Minister Qualls. Perhaps he meant the humans evacuated survivors before retreating. But Chancellor Vexhai was already pulling up tactical reports from the Gamma sector. The data confirmed what Captain Veltar had claimed. Long-range sensors showed debris fields where Reaper ships had been destroyed. Human vessels remained in the area, apparently unharmed. "Get me Admiral Chen," Vexhai ordered quietly. The chamber erupted in protests. Dozens of voices spoke at once, all expressing outrage at the suggestion. "Contact humanity? Ask the exiled barbarians for help? It was unthinkable. We expelled them for good reason," declared Justice Mordun. "They are violent, unpredictable, and dangerous. We cannot trust them. They are also apparently the only species that can fight the Reapers." Vexhai replied coldly. "Would you prefer to maintain our dignity while the galaxy burns?" The debate raged for hours. Pride warred with desperation as the Council struggled with an impossible choice. Some members threatened to withdraw from the Alliance if humanity was contacted. Others demanded immediate communication with the Terran Imperium. The decision came when news arrived of the Reaper's next target, the Council's capital system. Concordia Prime itself was under threat. "The Reapers will reach us in 48 hours, reported Chief Scientist Mordan. "All available fleets are moving to intercept, but based on previous encounters, we estimate a 7% chance of success." 7%. The heart of galactic civilization had a 7% chance of survival. In that moment, pride became a luxury the Council could no longer afford. "I am authorizing a diplomatic mission to the Terran Imperium," Chancellor Vexhai announced. "Ambassador Neltar will carry our formal request for assistance." The vote that followed was close but decisive. 163 species voted in favor of the mission. 127 voted against. 7 abstained. Ambassador Neltar had served the free colonies for over 60 years. She had been one of the few voices that defended humanity during their expulsion. Now she found herself tasked with the most important diplomatic mission in Council history. "What terms should I offer?" she asked Chancellor Vexhai privately. "Whatever they demand," he replied wearily. "Full readmission to the Council. Trade agreements. Technology transfers, territory, whatever it takes to save our worlds." Neltar nodded grimly. She understood the situation perfectly. The Galactic Council, which had cast out humanity for being too aggressive and militaristic, was now begging those same humans to save them from destruction. The irony was bitter, but undeniable. In their hour of greatest need, the Council was learning that sometimes civilization required warriors to defend it. Her ship launched from Concordia Prime as Reaper forces drew closer to the capital system. Behind her, the greatest military force in galactic history prepared for a battle they could not win. Ahead of her lay the uncertain hope that humanity would choose to save the species that had rejected them. The fate of the galaxy now rested in human hands. Whether that was salvation or doom remained to be seen. Ambassador Neltar settled in for the journey to Terran space, carrying with her the desperate hopes of 300 species. She only hoped the humans would be willing to listen before it was too late. The meeting took place in the Sigma neutral zone, far from both Council and Imperium space. Ambassador Neltar's small diplomatic vessel looked pathetically fragile next to the massive human dreadnought that waited for her. The TIS Retribution was over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack moons and armor that could withstand stellar radiation. Neltar had never seen a human warship up close before. The design was unlike anything in Council space. Where alien ships were elegant curves and flowing lines, human vessels were angular and aggressive. They looked like what they were: instruments of war built by a species that understood violence. The docking bay that received her shuttle could have held a dozen Council cruisers. Human Marines in powered armor escorted her through corridors lined with battle honors and unit insignia. Everything about the ship spoke of military precision and deadly capability. Admiral Sarah Chen waited in the main conference room, flanked by senior officers whose cold eyes had seen more combat in 5 years than most Council species experienced in centuries. Chen herself had changed since her expulsion from Concordia Prime. The diplomatic veneer was gone, replaced by the hard confidence of a warrior who had never lost a battle. "Ambassador Neltar," Chen said with professional courtesy. "Welcome aboard the Retribution. I trust your journey was comfortable." Neltar took her seat across from the human delegation. The difference in their positions could not have been starker. She was here as a supplicant begging for help from the species her government had cast out. They were here as conquerors who held the fate of the galaxy in their hands. "Admiral Chen," Neltar began carefully, "I come bearing a formal request from the Galactic Council. We need your help." Chen's smile was cold and predatory. "Help? That's interesting. The last time we met, your council voted to expel humanity from civilized space. You declared us too dangerous to exist alongside peaceful species." "The circumstances have changed," Neltar replied. "The Void Reapers threaten all life in the galaxy. Surely humanity does not want to see the destruction of entire civilizations." "Why should we care?" asked General Morrison, Chen's deputy. "The Council made it clear that we are not part of galactic civilization. These are not our people dying. These are not our worlds burning." Neltar felt desperation creeping into her voice. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because innocent lives are at stake. Because if the Reapers consume Council space, they will eventually reach Imperium territory." Admiral Chen leaned back in her chair. "You assume we cannot defend ourselves. That's the same mistake the Council has been making for years. You underestimate humanity." "The Reapers have destroyed every fleet sent against them," Neltar protested. "Their technology is beyond anything we understand." "Beyond anything you understand," Chen corrected. "But we've been fighting them for 18 months. While your fleets ran in terror, human forces engaged Reaper ships across 17 separate engagements. We've won every battle." Neltar stared in shock. 18 months? But the Reapers only emerged from the galactic core recently. "The Reapers emerged from the core because we drove them out of the outer rim," Chen explained patiently. "They were trying to establish forward bases in uninhabited systems. Our scouts detected them early and we've been hunting them ever since." The implications hit Neltar like a physical blow. The Reapers were not some new threat that had suddenly appeared. They were an ancient enemy that humanity had been fighting while the Council remained blissfully unaware. "How?" Neltar whispered. "How did you find ways to fight them when our greatest scientists failed?" Admiral Chen activated a holographic display showing technical schematics. "The Reapers manipulate space-time itself. They phase in and out of normal reality to avoid conventional weapons. But they have to exist in normal space to interact with matter. We developed quantum resonance weapons that can hit them regardless of their phase state." The display showed human ships in combat with Reaper vessels. It was unlike any space battle Neltar had ever seen. Human weapons fired beams of twisted energy that seemed to bend reality itself. Reaper ships that had been untouchable were torn apart by forces that ignored their phase-shifting abilities. "More importantly," Chen continued, "we understand why they're here. The Reapers are not destroyers. They're gardeners." "Gardeners?" Neltar asked in confusion. General Morrison nodded grimly. They harvest advanced civilizations before they can become threats to galactic stability. Every 50 million years, they emerge from dark space to prune the galaxy. The Council species have grown too numerous and too advanced. You triggered their awakening. The revelation was staggering. The Reapers were not random destroyers, but cosmic farmers who viewed all organic life as crops to be harvested. The Galactic Council, in their peaceful expansion, had crossed some invisible threshold that marked them for extinction. But you can stop them, Neltar said hopefully. We already have, Chen replied. The Reaper force heading for Concordia Prime will be intercepted by our second fleet in approximately 6 hours. They will be destroyed like all the others. Neltar felt a surge of relief, followed immediately by confusion. Then why did you agree to this meeting, if you're already protecting Council space? Admiral Chen's expression became deadly serious. Because it's time for the galaxy to understand some fundamental truths. The age of the Galactic Council is over. Your species had centuries to build an effective military. Instead, you chose bureaucracy over strength, negotiation over action. When real threats emerged, you were helpless. The human delegation stood as one, their movements precise and coordinated. They were soldiers, Neltar realized. Every one of them had commanded fleets in battle and won victories against impossible odds. The Terran Imperium will save your worlds, Chen announced. We will destroy the Reapers and eliminate the threat they represent. But we will not do it as members of your council or as allies seeking your approval. Neltar felt a chill run down her spine. What are you saying? I'm saying that the galaxy needs protectors, not politicians. Species that can act decisively when threats emerge. The council had its chance to lead and failed. Now it's our turn. Chen gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the current positions of human fleets. There were hundreds of them, spread throughout both Council and unexplored space. Each fleet was larger and more advanced than anything the Council could field. Human forces are already moving to defend every major population center in Council territory, Chen explained. Reaper attacks will be intercepted and eliminated. Your people will be safe under Imperium protection. Protection? Neltar asked weakly. The Terran Imperium is assuming responsibility for galactic security, Chen announced formally. Council species may maintain their internal governments, but all external threats will be handled by human forces. All interstellar conflicts will be mediated by Imperium authority. The meaning was clear, even if the words were diplomatic. Humanity was not offering to join the Galactic Council. They were replacing it. And if we refuse? Neltar asked, though she already knew the answer. Then you'll refuse alone, General Morrison replied. 47 Council species have already accepted Imperium protection. The others will follow once they see how effectively we can defend them. Neltar realized she was witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of another. The Galactic Council, which had maintained peace for centuries through careful diplomacy and mutual cooperation, was being swept aside by a species that understood the brutal truth. Peace was only possible when protected by those willing to fight for it. The Council will never accept this, she said desperately. Admiral Chen shrugged. The Council will accept whatever we decide to give them. They have no choice. Their fleets are destroyed, their defenses are useless, and their enemies are beyond their ability to fight. A communication alert interrupted the discussion. Chen activated her personal communicator and listened to a brief report. When she finished, she looked at Neltar with something that might have been sympathy. That was Admiral Torres commanding the Second Fleet, Chen announced. The Reaper force heading for Concordia Prime has been eliminated. All 37 enemy vessels destroyed. No human casualties. Neltar closed her eyes and tried to process what she had heard. In the time it had taken for this single conversation, human forces had won a victory that would have been impossible for the entire Council military. Your capital is safe, Chen continued, as are the 12 billion beings who live there. They are alive because human soldiers fought and died to protect them, not because the Council found some diplomatic solution. Admiral Chen stood and walked to the viewport that showed the stars beyond. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Ambassador. It always has been. The Council tried to pretend otherwise, building a civilization based on the assumption that everyone could be reasoned with, that every conflict could be resolved through talk. She turned back to face Neltar. But some threats don't negotiate. Some enemies don't compromise. When those threats emerge, the galaxy needs warriors to stand against them. That's what humanity offers. Not endless debate, but decisive action. The meeting was over, though no formal conclusion had been reached. Neltar understood that she had not been participating in negotiations, but receiving an ultimatum.